Hello, Matt here for AE Tuts. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to do 2D facial motion tracking within After Effects, using just the 2D tracking available. It's quite a simple effect. It mostly involves using the puppet pin tool and obviously motion tracking, but the results can be very rewarding and there's a lot you can do with it. For example, you can animate cartoon characters really quickly and easily with a lot of detail, and you can manipulate photos and even do face replacement, as I was doing before. So without further ado, let's go on with the tutorial. So, these are the clips that we'll be creating today. This is a sample file for AE Tut's tutorial on how to do facial motion capture within After Effects. Later, I'll also briefly cover character animation. So the first thing we're going to do is bring the sample file provided with this tutorial into After Effects and create a new composition with it. As you can see, I've covered my face in lots of little dots. Now I've placed these dots strategically on both expression hotspots, like my eyebrows, and also on more or less stationary areas, like the ridge of my nose and my hat. You don't necessarily need this many dots. It depends entirely on what you're going to be animating. Because I'm going to be doing face replacement and also manipulating a photo, I decided to go with detailed dot placement. It doesn't make it any more difficult, but it does make it more time consuming. If you only have to animate a cartoon character, it's actually alright to use as little as 7 or 8 dots like I did here. More on that later though. I used mascara for the dots as it's quite easy to apply and remove. To mark my hat, I simply cut some squares out of some black sticky tape. If you use tape, be aware of reflections from light sources, like here, as this makes things a little more tricky to track. When you're recording, make sure that you light your face brightly and evenly. I had a window to my left and a daylight bulb to my right, but simply sitting facing a large window should be adequate. If you have the option, try to record at 50 or 60 frames per second. This will give After Effects twice the motion data to work with, so tracking will be less prone to mistakes. It's especially important for the mouth as you can see, the motion is quite fast. Fortunately, most camcorders have the ability to shoot 50 or 60 interlaced frames a second, but remember that you'll need to convert that to progressive first before you use it in After Effects, for simplicity really. You may also want to film in portrait as I did here, to fill the frame more efficiently. With all that in mind, let's start! Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is import an image that we'll be animating. In this case, I'm going to be using the male average picture provided with this tutorial, and I'm going to place that in our composition. Obviously, because this is in portrait, I'm going to widen the composition just to give us a bit more space. Let's make it 600 pixels wide. Now what I need to do is line it up as accurately as I can with my face. So I can use the various tools available. Doesn't matter if I need to put it on a slant or whatever. Now many pictures won't actually fit your facial structure, and we'll need to do a little bit extra to how we apply the motion data to a picture like that, and I'll cover that later in the tutorial. So once you've got it all lined up, you will go to Layer, Pre-compose, and move all attributes into the new composition and hit OK. And we'll hide that for now, and then go to Layer again, New, Null Object. Now we'll be working a lot with null objects in this tutorial, and organization is essential. You're welcome to apply your own logic to it, but I like separating the dots into groups, such as the eyebrows, nose area, and cheek, etc. And then working from the middle outwards, left first and then right. So for the nose area, for example, I'd first track the top middle dot, then the bottom middle dot, then the left dot, and then the right dot. You'll see how I go about this as we work through this tutorial. And we will of course need to name our null objects very accurately and clearly, so we don't get confused. Right, so the first group I am going to track is going to be the forehead. So we'll work from the top down. So what I need to do, there are 5 dots on my hat, and that is the group. So I'm going to duplicate the null object 5 times. So these 5 null objects are going to be what the motion data of these dots is going to be applied to. So let's name them so we don't get confused. Click the first null object and hit enter on the keyboard. This will bring up the layer name where we can name them. And we'll name for this dot first, so we'll call it middle. No, actually we'll call it forehead. We'll call it forehead middle. And then we'll name for this dot, remember we're working from the middle out, left first, then right. So we'll name our second null object L for left, forehead 1. And then we'll name for this one left, forehead 2. And then on the right hand side we'll name for this dot R for right, right forehead 1, and right forehead 2 for this dot. So they're our null objects that we'll be applying the motion data to. And we'll go to Window, Workspace, Motion Tracking to bring up the motion tracker. And we'll select our sample file in the timeline. This will be your source footage, in other words, and hit Track Motion. This brings up the motion tracker, and we'll place it on our first dot, which is forehead middle, and track forward. Okay, so once it's tracked, click Edit Target, and then make sure it's forehead middle, because that's the null object we want to apply the motion to. Hit OK. Then hit Apply, make sure it's X and Y, and hit OK. Now without deselecting our layer, we'll hit Track Motion again, and go for our second null object, which is left forehead 1, and then make sure we're at the first frame by hitting Home on the keyboard. Line it up again, and track forward. Right, now we'll click Edit Target and make sure it's set to left forehead 1, because that's our dot's name, effectively. Hit OK, Apply, make sure it's X and Y, and then hit OK. Then we'll go to the first frame again by hitting Home on the keyboard, and then click Track Motion again. And then we'll place this track point on our second left dot. Now because this has a bit of reflection, because I used tape, I'm going to change the options of the motion tracker. I'm going to process it before match and click Enhance. And then I'm going to choose RGB instead of luminance, because it'll get less confused by the change in brightness. And then we're going to choose Continue Tracking if confidence is below 80%, and hit OK. Make sure it's on the edge of the dot and track forward. Click Edit Target, choose left forehead 2, OK, Apply, and OK. Hit Home on the keyboard again to go to the first frame, and then Track Motion. As you can see, it involves a lot of repetition, but it is definitely worth it for what you managed to make in the end. We'll reset that to what it was before, and track forward. Now we'll Edit Target, make sure it's right forehead 1, OK, Apply, X and Y, OK. Then go to the first frame again, Track Motion, place it on our final forehead dot, and then track forward. Edit Target, choose right forehead 2, OK, Apply, X and Y, OK. So as you can see, we have now got 5 null objects that all stick to our dots. Now usually I would, as I'm going along, add puppet pins to our image that needs to be tracked as I'm going along. However, because this tutorial would get a bit lengthy if I had to track all of these dots, I'm going to skip forward to where I've tracked all the dots. But first I'm just going to do the eyebrows just so you have another example of the workflow. So I'm going to click these null objects that we have tracked, just make them invisible, and then click Toggle Switches / Modes, and hide them. And then we'll click this little hide layer button to keep them out of the way, because it would get a bit of a confusing composition if there were all those null objects hanging around. So let's see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 null objects for the eyebrows, my eyebrow group. So I'm going to duplicate our null object 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then, pretty much as before, we're going to name them as descriptively as we can. Middle out, left first, then right. So first we'll track the middle eyebrow. So we'll call it eyebrow middle. Then we'll track for this one, which we will call left eyebrow 1. And then for this one, left eyebrow 2, and then for this one, left eyebrow 3. And then on the right hand side, we'll name for this one R for right, eyebrow 1, R, eyebrow 2, 3. So they're all our eyebrow dots. Now all our eyebrow dots have names. So as before, we're going to click our source footage and hit track motion. Now we're going to track as before for the middle one first, as that is the first in the group. Track forward, edit target, choose eyebrow middle, OK, apply X and Y, OK. Then hit home on the keyboard to go back to the first frame, track motion. Let's go for left eyebrow 1, edit target, left eyebrow 1, OK, apply X and Y, OK. Home on the keyboard again, track forward, edit target,